All right, let's get started. So appreciate everybody for joining our first agency-directed webinar. Very excited for this event, and hopefully this is something that we will continue to do going forward. So first, before I get into the details, just want to give a couple of housekeeping items. So we will be taking questions throughout the hour. So if you have a question, don't be afraid to just pop it into the Q&A. We have a couple people from our team monitoring it, and I'll be monitoring it as well. So that will kind of tailor the direction we will go within this webinar. So make sure you ask those questions, and we will be sending out a recording afterwards, so you'll have access to it. So you don't need to be taking notes. You can really be listening, and we'll give you those the recording afterwards, so you can have all the information that we're going to get out of this. So with that, I'm very excited for our first webinar here. So the kind of the background on why we're doing this is, as every quarter, we as a CFO group meet and we talk about what's happening in the agency world, and we try to hopefully get your QBR slides from your CFOs. But in that meeting, we have a lot of good conversations, and what I've noticed over the last 2 quarters is the conversations have gotten to the point where it's really hard for us as CFOs to put our finger on what are the clients that are doing really well right now, and what are the ones that are struggling, and what's the difference between the two. And so instead of just us trying to speculate and us really trying to figure that out, we thought we'd bring in some of the agencies that our CFOs have identified that are doing really well right now and have them talk about it. So we're just going to have a really open dialogue here and talk about what is going on in the agency world that are for these 3 successful agencies. So I'd love to have them introduce themselves. So we're going to go around the room real quick. So I wanted them to each participant to give a little bit about your background, about your company, as well as kind of who you serve and what your niches are and all that good stuff. And then also I'm going to throw a fun question in there just to make this interesting. So if you could also tell us what show you're binging on or watching right now on TV, and where people can find it. So Josh, let's start with you, and you can answer those questions and give us your background.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I'm Josh Eaton. I'm the CEO at Reaktiv. We've been around since 2011. We're a fully remote agency, always have been, and we do digital strategy, web design, and development, primarily with WordPress. We're a WordPress VIP featured partner, and our main verticals are enterprise, technology, higher education, and media companies. And the show, I'm not binging because it's coming out 1 week at a time, but Pluribus is the show that I'm really into right now, the new Vince Gilligan show.
Okay, cool. Have to check that one out. All right, Matthew, how about you?
Yeah, hi, my name is Matthew Jordan. I am the Chief Creative Officer at Artefact. We're a small studio, about 15 people. We practice human-centered design, cross-research strategy, and design. We think of our mission as being better futures by design, which represents our belief that design has the power and actually the responsibility to create better futures, whether it's for individuals, for communities, for businesses. So in terms of the verticals that we focus on, it's primarily health, education, social impact. But there's this through line of technology that kind of crosses those sectors, really trying to help our clients make the most of technology as it emerges, making sure that it's, again, being used for positive impact as opposed to some negative unintended consequences. So yeah, that's Artefact in a nutshell.
Then what are you watching right now?
So it's not a binge, although I do go back years, is John Oliver. This week tonight, unfortunately, it's where I get most of my news, but it's yeah, it's just a great long form, super well researched, very entertaining. So I recommend it if you don't follow already.
Awesome, great. All right, Mike, you're up.
Perfect. Mike Morse. I'm president and owner of Lucid Advertising. Our AMI business coach would call me more of a generalist agency. We're full service, but we operate, I'd say, 75% digital, and even 25% we're still offline, even some time materials design and stuff like that. So a lot of B2B, that's been a big growth for us. And then B2C, we work in a lot of healthcare. That's probably a personal passion for me.
Great. What are you watching?
I probably should watch less, because the last one I was binging was The Beast in Me. That's kind of embarrassing to admit.
I've heard that one's good though.
Yeah, I liked it.
Great.
We watch that too.
All Good. Yeah, I heard it's a good one. Great. And then just so you guys know my background. So I'm the director of VCFO here at Anders, VCFO. And prior to becoming in the director role, I was a CFO for 15 clients. And a lot of those clients were in the agency space. I think at one point I had up to 10 agency clients. So some people on this webinar may have had me as a CFO at some point, but now I'm in the role where I kind of oversee our strategy and making sure that we're properly serving the agencies. So that's why I'm running this webinar. So very excited. So the first question that I want to start, and I'm going to start with you, Mike, so you can start thinking through this, is we're going to start talking about the market. So first I want to know what has surprised you about the market in 2025 and how has it shaped the decisions you've made?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me, and it's been coming to grips because I'm a graphic designer. That's where I started, and creative director. But creative alone isn't really enough to drive. It's almost like I think businesses are almost looking at it as almost like the value add in a way. So it's for me, it's we have to continue adding these quality resources without maybe raising prices to meet the quality that we know we need to give them. Because that's going to lead to better leads that are going to convert. But that's been kind of it's more and more the focus, and it's kind of a do more with less is really the messaging that we're getting. And then another key piece of that, we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but making sure that our people all of us were transparent with our finances so that people understand what AGI means and how do we make money and what should we be, how can we cut a budget but still make a profit and give the client what they need.
Yeah, we'll definitely go down the transparency. I know that was one of your key points, but yeah, let's sort over to you, Matt. What have you seen in the market, and how have you shaped your decisions this year?
Yeah, so for us, the biggest things we've been seeing are just this climate of change. If you think back to the start of 2025, you kind of can think about the steep framework for trends. And if you think about technology, AI came on. If you think about like economics, there was a lot of dropped federal funding for a lot of the clients that we have that are on the government side. And just even like on the political social side of things, just to sort of pull back from DEI, which was actually a lot of our work. So for us, it was more, how do we navigate all these changes that are happening around us? For us, that ended up looking like focusing more on the technology sector, just because we knew it was going to be safe in this administration, and really just kind of leaning into some of our past history, which had been more technology focused, even though as a studio, we're pushing more towards the social impact side of work. We knew that just to survive, we needed to focus on, unfortunately, just where the where the players were that had the budgets that would be able to keep us going. The other thing is a lot of our work is on sort of a big ramp up and a big project that's more on the like strategy or in the envisioning side of things, and just recognizing that that is work that our clients don't need all the time. They need periodically, just making sure that we're really set up to be successful for those types of projects when they come. So it's a little bit more of like doubling down on what we're doing, a little bit more of like retreating, but that's kind of how we've been able to navigate this, again, climate of change that we see in the marketplace.
Great. Yeah, we'll hit back on one of those factors in a second here, but I want to hear Josh's answer as well.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty surprised that I'm on this webinar panel, to be honest with you, at this point. Not because we aren't having a good year, but I think I'm surprised given how much of a roller coaster the past few years have been. So that has definitely been a surprise for me this year. Like what Matthew was saying with federal, we don't do a bunch of federal work, but last year I had been looking into how can we do more federal work in 2025, and that definitely didn't
Not the year.
didn't pan out. And also as WordPress being our primary tech stack, it's been a scary year for WordPress, given some turbulence there last year. That hasn't really panned out where we've seen our clients concerned about WordPress. And so we've still had plenty of demand this year. And so that's been a surprise that we haven't had to pivot away from WordPress just yet, even though we are actively exploring other options as well. But still, we love WordPress, and we've continued to do a ton of WordPress work this year. I expected to see a lot more rate pressure this year, and while we have on certain clients, it hasn't been across the board. I have other clients, other prospects coming in that are still willing to have big budget projects, and that's been really good. So I would say it's definitely been a surprising year.
Yeah, that's surprising in a good way. That's always a good thing. But yeah, it's a fun ride to ride sometimes when you get those ups and downs. So the next question, Matt, I'm going to throw it back over to you because you kind of mentioned and listed out some of the external factors, which again, a lot of them have been just not only for the agency world or the business world, but just the world in general. It's been an interesting year in terms of all the things that have really started to rear their heads. So each of you want to talk about which one of the external factors has been the most significant, and again, some steps you've taken to either use it into your advantage or to make it not as big of a disadvantage as it could be.
Yeah, on the external side, one of our biggest challenges again has been, like Josh mentioned, this thinking about or pushing towards more work in the federal space or the government space, and just kind of seeing that just entirely shift and just basically drop out has been just one of the biggest things that we've had to deal with. We were doing a good percentage of government work, but not necessarily the largest percentage of our portfolio. But it's really been just kind of a larger pivot away from that as, yeah, something where we're focusing on a strategic play. And yeah, just trying to fill it with the other kinds of work that was there. There's always this tension between the kind of work that we want to be doing and that the studio wants to be doing. We'll talk about like team health in a bit, I would assume. There's this tension between what they want to be doing and like, we need to get paid to keep the doors open. So that was sort of one of the biggest external factors that I think we ended up just having to deal with from a financial perspective and also from a team health perspective.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Is that you had something that came in and you just pivoted away from it, which is definitely a strategy, and hopefully the one that came in. What did you pivot away to?
Like I mentioned, we pivoted more towards the things that we have that have a continual budget, more in the technology space. So a lot of work with like the big technology companies. We're in Seattle, so there's a lot here. And then also more work on the private foundation side. So Gates Foundation is also here local in Seattle. And as we saw a lot of the federal dollars drying up, we were aware of just sort of what the Gates Foundation was doing and other philanthropies. It's not the only one that we work with. And just, yeah, making sure that those relationships are super, super strong because that's going to be filling a lot of the gap in this social impact work that we want to be doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Josh, what about you? What do you see as the biggest external factor?
We have seen a lot more strategy work coming through than our typical design and dev in the past. And so that's been a big focus for this year. I think also just there's a lot of things you hear, like you have to be completely niche down, right? You have to have like one thing you're really great at. And by being a little bit of a generalist, that's helped us this year because one industry tanks and then you have one may pick up. Because we've seen that in the past where tech companies do a bunch of layoffs. None of our tech clients are doing much work. And then higher ed is doing a lot of work. Or this year for us, it's been media. And I'll have conversations with other agency owners who say, yeah, we're getting out of media. We're focusing on higher ed. And then I talk to someone else and they're doing the exact opposite. And so it's it's like, which one of these is going to still be around in 5 or 10 years? And so just having that, I think, has been a strength where I've always looked at it like, oh, we need to be more niche down into a specific vertical or a specific offering.
Great. Yeah, that's definitely in all the conferences I go to, those conversations happen a lot. Like, do you niche or are you a generalist? And there's good arguments for both. So it sounds like being a generalist has really worked for you in this market.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Mike, what about you? What's that external factor that you think has been the biggest one you're focusing on?
One issue we've had this year, it seems like data compliance, which is a little odd for an agency, especially when you're dealing with creative. And that's why maybe I'm starting to see some of that looked at more value add. But people getting letters about privacy policies or LinkedIn tracking pixels, that legal portion of it. I think that's going to be actually like maybe a growth service channel for us in a way, because we have to get serious about what we're recommending, ADA plugins. It's kind of like an insurance play, because the last thing you want to do is end up on a call with a $3 billion company and a lawyer.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So
Great.
Yeah,
That's
and then
good
I
as
think
well.
even politically speaking, even the way the stock market has gone, I think a lot of people were looking at budgets, and it's amazing. But some people will have a look at an outlook like there's so much opportunity, and then someone else is really buckling down, and trying to, for us at least, having both of those conversations and then trying to work with those budgets.
Okay, great. All right, I'm gonna dig in a little bit here and allow each of you guys, if you had one thing that you could do over that really you think has contributed to your success, what would that one thing be? And Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, if I could go back in time, that'd be 20 years. For us, we're just getting ready to hit that anniversary. I would have hired AMI as Agency Management Institute, but I would have hired them to be our business coach, and I would have stuck to a very specific formula. It's a 55-25-20, and it's 55% is your people, 25% is your operations, 20% is profit. I think those metrics are changing a little bit because some of us are work from home. We have less operational costs and some things like that. But I wish that someone could have given me that formula or that roadmap when I started, because I just didn't know.
Yeah, I think hiring coaches, we have a lot of coaches on our podcast because I do think there's a value in having someone else from the outside look at your business and think of it from a different perspective, because I think oftentimes you get so into the weeds, and so having someone that, it sounds like this person's even very finance oriented, which is good, and understanding kind of the formula for a profitable company. So that's a great tip. Matt, what about you? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, yeah, the big argument that I had for a decade that I had with coaches was that, and even business advisors, they would say, Mike, it's all about the numbers. I'm like, it's not about the numbers. It's about the work. It's about the creative. That's what it's about. The numbers will take care of themselves, and they don't. The numbers don't take care of themselves ever. It's like herding cats over there or something, So once I got focused on that, it's really made me more accountable. And I think that's a huge piece of the business, is that the owner has to be accountable.
Great. Yeah, definitely can agree with that. All right, Matt, what about you? What's the one thing that you think you can contribute to your success?
It's kind of going back 5 years, but before the pandemic, my background is in user research, so you always got to be in the site, you got to be in context, talking to people, etc. So before the pandemic, I said we would never be successful as sort of a research capability if we weren't able to be in front of people. But in fact, we can do lots of great research, even through Zoom, through phone calls, through just lots of much more different types of methods than I would have anchored on previously. But what that's led us to is, after the pandemic, is becoming an entirely remote office. So one thing I would have done way earlier is not have a physical space, not have signed a 10-year lease or whatever it was, which we're still getting out of. So just the willingness to go entirely remote, and just to have the confidence that, yeah, you can be really successful if you're able to do that, to me would have been the one thing I wish I'd known, well, more than 5 years ago, just planning for the pandemic. Of course, I'm sure we all wish we'd known that was coming, but that would have been the one thing that I would have thought about or done differently.
How has being remote changed you from from your role and from how you run your organization?
It's been a lot of tension. Actually, it's been very liberating in who we can hire. We have people all across the country now with great generalists and people willing to do the exact kind of thing that we need them to do for a super small studio. So that's great. The biggest tension, though, is maintaining company culture when everyone's, again, all over the all over the country. So great hiring, great to bring people in. It's just more maintaining that culture, which a lot of people come to a small studio for, is like that rapport and the team chemistry, etc. Maintaining that in a remote situation has been the challenge. We've done some things to sort of defend against that, but I think we still have work to do to be really successful and create that culture that we want to have.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is a cost saving in some ways, but at other times it's like, well, we can't just be remote. We have to make sure people get together and see each other and hang out and find some ways to foster that culture. Because yeah, any company without culture is not going to last very long.
That's right, especially in the creative space where culture is really one of the draws. When you could go work for a big tech company and get more salary, it's like, this is one of the reasons why our team is here, so we have to provide for that.
Yep, great. All right, Josh, what's your one big thing?
Yeah, I definitely related to what Mike said about paying attention to the numbers. Like it's not that they'll just work out. And I definitely spend a lot of time prioritizing culture over the numbers, which sounds really great until you have to right size your team because of that. So it's honorable, but then, has consequences. So that's been huge. But I'd also say we got burned really early on by using contractors, and we're very against using contractors. It's like we made a big deal about everyone being even though we're a small firm, that everyone was a full-time employee. And we've since, I think we could have grown better had we not had this like stark line where we weren't going to outsource any of our work to part-time or contractors. And so we're doing a lot more of that now, and it's working well. And that would have been probably better for us, 5-10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's another one of those debates that come up is contractors versus employees and how to get the right mix there. So that's a very common conversation. Matthew, do you have a follow-up question to that?
No, I just really, the contractor, that issue, or just thinking through that, has been something that's also helped on our side. It's really hard to find the right people who are willing to sort of work under that contract, but if you can find them, if it works for both, it's a great way of just kind of like, managing the ups and downs of a small agency. So we have had very good luck with that as well.
Great. Yeah, it's some areas that we can definitely dive into, but I want to dive into this next area because it was mentioned in everyone's question, and it's kind of twofold. We talked a little bit about culture, or a lot about culture, but also about the team and the team health, because I think obviously during these times when a lot of agencies are struggling, the team stress goes up. So I think that's a really important thing to talk about. So why don't we start with Matt, since you're still on the screen here, why don't you talk a little bit about some culture plays you've done during these times?
So for us, culture has been making sure that we do meet face to face. So investing in a summit where everyone comes together, also letting people sort of congregate on both coasts, which is where our team is, just to have that face to face time. We have meetups. That really, really helps build that rapport. Those are some of the main things that we're doing just to ensure that, that you have that dynamic, or that collaboration that people come to a small studio for. And then the other thing is, honestly, as times have been really hard, is someone mentioned transparency before, specifically on the financial side. That's been absolutely critical for our team to stay with us, even though we've had to do reductions in salaries and to sort of align utilization better. Just knowing, giving people the heads up, this is where we are, this is why we're doing this, has been incredibly helpful to, the team. They feel like they're part of the decision. They are part of the decision. We get a read from them. They know what's going on. So it's more, it's just more sort of bringing everyone into those strategic decisions, or just letting everyone know what's going on and why. So the idea of like transparency, super, super critical. Yeah.
Yeah, we are a big transparency firm here. We want to make sure everybody knows, because people are going to tell the story in their head anyways. So if people are telling the story, let's at least give them the right one, so they're not making stuff up either in the wrong direction. Because it could be, when times are going well, they could be like, oh wow, Matt's making $2 million a year. Look at that car he's driving. Or it could be when times aren't going so well, it's like, oh, we're all going to get laid off tomorrow. So I think having that transparency gives people comfort in knowing that, okay, this is what it looks like. Because sometimes you do get to that point where things are really bad, and I think it's good to give people that awareness of it. So that's a really good point. So Josh, I'm going to throw over to you, and so answer the question about culture as well. But we also have a question from the audience about using contractors. So if it works well, how do you decide which roles are perfect for employees versus which ones are good for contractors? So Josh, you can answer that as well as your kind of culture question.
Sure. For culture, I don't have too much different from what Matthew said. The transparency has really been huge, because I have always understood the numbers and how important that was, but it's also been like, as a sole owner of a private company, it's been like, I'm not reporting those to anyone, right? So it's been like, if our profit is lower, then like it's just me looking at that. But really bringing the team along into why utilization is important, why why our effective billable rate matters, and why, even though you get paid a salary, we have to track time and match that against the project, track our productivity has been really big because it's really helped everyone like row in the same direction. And so even though that isn't necessarily like what we typically think of culture, having that like everyone bought into that vision of how we're going to succeed has worked really well. We also do team retreats. We try to do one in person, one virtual each year. Just had our virtual one a couple months ago. And so that's all done pretty well. We've also always been remote. And so we've had, everyone's been used to that versus like missing seeing each other in the office. So and it was interesting during when COVID hit, because then it was like suddenly we didn't have that like advantage. It's like, well, everyone's remote. And it's like, so it's kind of come back around a little bit since then, with a lot of places needing to return to the office. And then for the question in the chat on using contractors, we really just didn't do it well in the past. We tried to bring in people that were had been doing it a long time, well respected. And we were like, hey, you know what to do it your way. And that really didn't work, right? And instead, so now we focused on bringing people in as part of a team versus saying, hey, we're going to have you on this project. So making sure we're not just assigning one contractor to a project. We, I mean, kind of across all of our roles, we've been able to do that where we need to add capacity. And so it hasn't necessarily been like, oh, we can only do it for design or only do it for dev. So that has worked. And so we look at making sure that if it's going to be a role where there's a lot of like domain knowledge, so it's something that we don't want to be, hey, if this contractor isn't working for us next month, we're going to be screwed on this particular client. So we make sure all that knowledge is documented, shared internally. And maybe we have employees on those, or we have employees as like our owners for each project, and there may be contractors on their team. So making sure that that's how we've been successful so far the past couple of years with contractors.
Great answers on both of those. I am curious, what's been your favorite external or in-person retreat that you've done?
We've done a bunch in San Diego. We did one in Breckenridge and it was not successful, but it was still one of my favorites because it snowed us in one of the days, but everyone was affected by the altitude and people got like altitude sickness. But it was a great memory and that it like went so poorly, but I wouldn't do it there again.
Nice.
Jamie, can I make one comment on the contractor side?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, one thing. So for contractors, for us, since we do a wide range of different types of design, whether it's physical product or space or digital, we typically bring in contractors, exactly as Josh mentioned, where sort of the owners need to be part of the full-time pool of employees, but contractors when there's a specialized skill. So if we need a motion guy, because then that's their expertise and they're adding it to this project as opposed to them like having the client relationship. They're really coming in as like this quick, high value thing that we wouldn't be able to do, that we would never hire up a full-time employee for like a motion study, for example. So that's the other thing that we're using to make the most out of contractors, but very much agree with what Josh said on sort of the FTE being the owners of the programs.
That's great. Yeah, it's definitely a good way to approach it. All right, Mike, your turn to talk about team health and culture. So what are some tips you might have there?
Perfect. On the contractor thing too, I have one quick thing there. I used to want all of creative and those specialty kind of resources in-house, right? Or all of that in-house. And that was a huge mistake. To their points, I think I should have had better resources given skill sets. So we've really focused on keeping account management, project management, strategy, even web dev. I like to keep web dev in-house. We've been experimenting with getting some people to operate within the process of the way we operate, but writers, designers, even people that can implement strategy, you can farm those out, and you're not stuck paying a W-2 salary. Anyway, that was the contractor side of things. Culture side of things, I think we've always had good culture, and I didn't really know maybe all of the ways to do it. And a couple of years ago, we really started focusing on what are our employee benefits? What are we really doing? So we're sharing the P&L monthly. We sit down as a team and review it so everybody knows exactly the number. I'd like to think I've actually kind of tested some people here and there, like what's a COG, what's an operational expense, and when they can answer all of those questions, that's I think again it puts us all on the same page. So that's kind of a financial culture. Something I went to I was really preaching like that I wanted people to take vacation, but I wasn't actually doing it myself. So I think once I started taking longer vacations, but we went to a paid to a PTO bonus. So we pay $1,000 if you'll take 5 days of consecutive PTO, because I know that after anybody can go 3 days and you don't really have to push any work off. You can kind of like make do. But when you're going to be gone for 5 days, usually there's a weekend wrapped around it or a holiday even. There's no rules based on this, but it really makes you, by the time you get back, you probably forgot what you were doing before. And it's a great mental reset. So that's been a really great one. And that actually replaced health insurance for us. So health insurance we didn't have enough people involved and it was so expensive. This benefit kind of replaced that. The other one is I was challenged last year. We had a growth goal and hey, if we get it, can we take a trip? And we took one to Austin this year. And that was a total blast. So we have an event planner on the team and she kills it with stuff like that. So
that's awesome. I love the idea of the mental reset. I think that people work so much more effectively when they're in the right mind space, and that's why we do our retreats, is because people come back from our retreats more motivated. They come back with a lot of really good insights, and they're ready to work. And so I think doing those retreats are really good for that. But yeah, PTO is the same way. Like I know when I come back from PTO, a lot of the stuff that I was working on just kind of disappear, or there's someone else taking care of them. And then you're reset. Okay, these are my priorities. So that's really good. So everybody mentioned.
I have one last thing. I have one last thing on the culture thing too. This is from my experience. When we went away for COVID, I thought, the agency is going to end. I don't know how we're going to keep doing our work. We didn't have a lot of document processes. It was like this huge, kind of a huge thing for us. And it turned out we were more efficient. So I even had an employee tell me, she goes, none of us are working on Friday after 3. Like, well, numbers are great, so I don't know that I really care,
Yeah.
But we came back to the office, and so I said, hey, we want to get back to the office culture and kind of regroup and all that, but we're going to do work from home Wednesdays. So we were doing that for a while, and I found myself working at 6 o'clock on Friday again. And I'm kind of getting chapped because, people are leaving, they're going home at 5. Then I'm thinking like, I don't really want anybody working at 5 on every Friday anyway, just to sit here at a desk. So, my director of client services came up with this idea for me. He said, well, let's go back to hump your ass to work Wednesdays. So that's what we do now. It's like Wednesdays we're all in the office together. And it's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of in-person things. And then we went to no meetings Thursday. So Thursday's like, no meet Thursday. So I think those kind of things have really helped because it lets people prioritize and they also know what to expect from each other.
And blocking your schedule is so important. Like, okay, I know Thursday I can work on this project or whatnot. So there is a follow-up question for you, Mike, and then there's a follow-up question for everybody. So the follow-up question for you, Mike, is how are people getting their health insurance if you're not providing it?
Yeah. So, for us, we're probably lucky because we're a small team. So some of it is either a spouse has it or they get it through the marketplace. Personally, I've gone to like a group, it's group health sharing. So I think there's at least 1, maybe 2 other employees that are also doing that. Sedera is the company. It's kind of it's coverage for like, like catastrophic kind of a thing. As opposed to, a $500 annual deductible or something like that. So I think we're also working with a PEO right now, and I'm looking at another PEO that could start to offer us health insurance because we have dental and vision and those things through the PEO. I really recommend a PEO to just about anybody. That's taken all of the, hey, can I take vacation? How much can I bleed off of future vacation? All those kind of policies. So that PEO really helps, but there's so many benefits that are offered there.
Okay, great. That's some great tips. And just so everybody knows, we will, at as we get towards the end here, we'll have all the people that are in the panel here provide their email addresses. So if you have specific questions for them, they'll get back to you. So we can do it that way as well. But okay, so the question for everybody is, everyone talked about financial transparency. So the question came in is, how do you deliver those negative results, or how do you make people not worried about their jobs or starting to look for jobs when you give negative results? So I'm going to start with Josh on this one. So let's talk about that financial transparency and how you handle the negative results.
Yeah, definitely. We're probably not as open book, maybe as Mike said. Like, we don't share the full P&L, but we share like the important metrics. We share utilization. We share what our growth in revenue and how it compares to like previous year quarter, things like that. I think the big thing is like, once you decide to start doing that, it's not, I think someone already mentioned this earlier, that you're not only sharing when things are good or only sharing when things are bad, being consistent. And it's really about building the trust with the team. So I even said, like, I maybe didn't pay as much attention to the numbers, or I didn't get the team on board with that, by prioritizing culture, but at least by prioritizing culture, I had built the trust with the team that then when we needed to do that, we were able to, because they had trust that we were making the right decisions to, get the company back on the right foot. So, yeah, it's hard.
How much education went into that first presentation?
Definitely a lot. So yeah, a lot of focus on financial literacy, and still to this day, I will continue to like reiterate what things are or explain graphs that we show. And so it's continual, because even after showing it for a year, some people would be like, I have no idea what any of this means. And it's like, but I understand that. I mean, I took the CPA exam in a previous life, and so like it makes sense to me. And so being able to explain that to the team is helpful. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of education to understand why this matters and what this means for you. Like, and also for them to know what kind of levers they can pull to try to affect these results. Like, I think that's been really huge, to not feel powerless. Like, well, the company is tanking and I can't do anything about it. To say, here's exactly what we need to be able to, fix this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are too afraid to ask if they don't know too. So I think having that continuing education, like as a CFO, I know, like, I've talked about effective rate for 18 months, and then a client has come back and been like, can you explain effective rate to me again? I'm like, oh man, I guess I've wasted all those conversations I've had. So it's really important that you're just doing it a lot, because people are afraid to ask especially when it comes to finance and money. So so Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you in terms of those negative results, and then we'll wrap up this question with Matt. So Mike, what are your thoughts on how to report the negative results to your company?
Well, I have probably like the worst case scenario of it, but this would be, we started presenting in April of 23. So in February 23, we lost $30,000 or $40,000 in a month. And AMI, my coach, Drew and Danielle, coaches, said, you got to open the P&L. I'm like, you are out of your mind. Like, why am I going to show my people my P&L when we just lost? Then we lost 15 in March. So he's like, if you don't do this, like, no one's going to understand why you're right sizing salaries. I think Josh mentioned that, or, why you're making some of the decisions you're making, because they think you build $1 million, they think you're a millionaire. Yeah. Like, people don't think that, So sure, and I got the P&L together, and those are the numbers I showed: gross revenue, COGS. Here's your AGI. I group wages and operations all together. W2 wages and operations, and then here's your net profit. And I walked through the formula with them, told them all the terms, showed them the numbers. I had to tell them, like, here it is since January. We lost 30, we lost 15. Kind of explained to, like, what the goal is for the year. Here's this profit sharing program I want to start once we start making money again. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at the front of the room. It's just worst placement, I guess. But I'm looking at the screen and I stopped talking. And that was the noise in the room, like dead silence, right? And so someone goes, so just to be clear, you're not a millionaire. It's the story that they think, and if I were them, I would think the same thing. You build $1 million, you're a millionaire, Yeah. So I think once you've explained it and you're being transparent and truthful, that's the thing. It's and even this year, I honestly, just not at 10 a.m. this morning, I had to present November's numbers, and we lost $50,000 in November, we're having a banner year. So you have to be able to explain why 1 month a trend doesn't make, and why we need to be looking at a year. Why should we be looking at a rolling year? What are projections out ahead of us and all those kind of things. So sometimes operational expenses, we have to really get in the weeds about, I had to do it today. Hey, I signed an agreement with a lawyer to rewrite all of our agreements. We've always had big November, Decembers, but we've pushed projects ahead this year. So we finished them ahead of time. So that led to like a softer November, and that's what led to the loss. So it's not someone needs to be worried about their job. It's taken care of in the year,
Yeah, no, that's really important that they understand the context of the numbers. But Matt, when I throw this over to you, if you could address, like, if you've ever had to, if you're to that point where you might have layoffs, how have you addressed that with the team, or how do you, like, either mitigate those fears or be honest with the company that we may have to come to that point?
Yeah, so we were in the worst news possible. This is not this year, but previously, where the studio was just a great size, great dynamic. We did not want to do any kind of layoffs or reduction in force. So what we actually did was just reduce salaries for a temporary, reduce salaries, but also reduce how much time people were working. So for a period, it was 3 days of work, 6% salary. Then we went back up to 80, et cetera. So we were making this very distinct decision that this is how we wanted to stay together as a studio. And what was interesting is, obviously, you have to be super transparent if you're going to be doing that. We didn't lose anyone at the organization, even though that's the plan that we made and that we executed. It was very much we were in this together. They understood everything. I mean, this is like very negative news to have to tell somebody that, for however many months you're going to be getting 60% of your salary. But the team stuck together. People were stepping up and trying to do their own like relationship building and business development, et cetera. So it was this very really very transparent. And I think that's actually what kept people invested and with the organization, is just knowing exactly where we are and exactly what we're going to do to get back to sort of full capacity, full percent salary, which we were able to do. The one tactical thing I would say is, this was over a number of months, we were making this decision and communicating it to the team. And we'd always, after we did a presentation or let people know where we are there any questions? And no one would have questions, but that they had questions. So we actually did this thing where after each presentation, we set up a pulse check with each individual in the organization where we sit down. It's a personal decision that they're making. Are they scared? Are they going to go somewhere else? If that's the decision that they may need to make, that's fine. But we wanted to have that really intimate connection, just people as people, to understand how they're doing with the decision, how does it impact them personally. And I think part of that also, just helped the negative news sit better, because they knew that they had a voice. They knew that leadership understood what they were giving, the sacrifices that they were making. And like I said, the studio was able to stick together through that really rough time.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in having a team all understanding where you're at and making decisions together, because sometimes there's things going on behind the scenes that you don't know about. Like maybe an employee that you're thinking about cutting in 3 months has this awesome job offer that they're not going to take because they are working with you and they're super happy, but they realize that maybe you are struggling a little bit and having the tough cut decision. They may come to you and say, I have this offer, should I take it? And I think it really allows you guys to all work on the problem together, or like your team did. They all come together and be like, okay, we don't want to do layoffs, so we're all willing to take these changes. And so I think when you all are working towards one problem together, there's a lot of power in that.
We had people even opting in where, after we were getting back to 100, the experience of working 3 and then 4 days a week, no, this actually works for me personally. I could do so much child care on Fridays stuff, and I get to spend time with the kids. So we had people just kind of committing to that long term. So it was just we were forced into that situation, but I think it ended up, as hard of a situation it was, we ended up making it through.
All right, Matthew, I'm going to stick with you for this next topic. So we're going to turn the wheel a little bit, and we're going to start talking about revenue and marketing and what the revenue sources are. So is it a lot of it coming from cross-selling? Is it a lot of new clients? Are you in new markets? And then also, when it comes to revenue, are you seeing smaller deals? Are you seeing pressure on deals than previous years? So we'll start with you, Matt, and then we'll kind of go around the room on this one.
All of our, not all, the large majority of our work is all referral. So it's all somebody comes back to us after a few years. Again, we do a lot of work on the strategy side, so people don't need like big envisioning of an experience like every month or every year. It's more they kind of come back. So we do a lot to sort of maintain those relationships as sort of trusted advisors. So we're sharing content, sharing insights that's happening on our business, even if there's not a project at all on the horizon, just to quote stay on the radar is what we do that. So the bulk of our work is yeah, just through referral. We do social media pushes as well, just to sort of keep our name out there because there's so many people that we would want to keep in touch with that we're just not able to. And then the other thing we've been able to do is we've kept our bill rates where we've had them. I think the one thing is that because we're in this model where there's like a big sort of ramp up to a project, that as we look at utilization, as we see it's sort of trailing off in sort of the 2 months time frame, we drop our rates just to say like, hey, this is going on. We really need to get this. Like, what percentage? Where do we need to be just to get? And again, it's just like it's better to be doing some work at 50% of what your rate is than like having the team sitting on the bench doing thought leadership, et cetera. So before we'd been very rigid about our bill rate, but we've just become much more flexible to fill in some of those gaps, and it's again served us well.
Yeah, anyone that knows me knows I'm a pipeline nerd. I love talking pipeline. I love making sure you have calculations around it and you understand capacity around it. And it allows you to make those decisions easier, because if you understand, oh, our pipeline's a little quiet right now and it's going to be quiet for the next X number of months, we can accept a little bit less on rate. That it's really important to know those metrics.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike, what about you?
For us, it's been programmatic. I would say 2 years ago, again, coaching challenged me with like, what's your new service or what's something new that you're going to sell? Like, or in advertising, I can't invent something new, but we found programmatic and we found a way. I always thought it was out of reach for us. Found a way that we could make it work, and that's been a huge increase because it's really either supplement or even a lot of times replaced traditional paid search, and it's kind of like on steroids. So the results were there. People will continue. Budgets maybe 3 month tests that have turned into 2.5 year campaigns. So that's been a big one, and I think the two other pieces, well, the continuing piece, and this year I'm kind of looking for a new one. It is in this data compliance space, but what is the new service that you're selling, so that you're not just reliant on what got you here isn't going to get you there. So, do you have that? And I had another friend of mine one time. He always pressed me. He said, you should always be looking for 1% in your P&L as a business owner. Where can you save the money, or where can you? And so it's really helped me get our operations down. Whether it's paying annual software subscriptions versus monthly. I couldn't believe. I always thought that would be nickels and dimes, but it's amazing. They all add up, and suddenly you're saving $5,000 a year.
No, definitely. And I think that's also where having that coach comes in. Like, we have a not EOS implementer, but essentially EOS implementer that challenges us every quarter. Like, what can you be doing better? Where can you be adding efficiencies? Where can you be serving your clients better? And I think just having someone challenge you on those things of where is that 1%? What is that? How can you get 1% better this year? And that type of thing. So that's a really good path to go down. So yeah, Josh, what about you? What are you seeing in terms of the client mix?
We've always had a lot of repeat work, clients that stay with us for a really long time. And I still think that's great, but I started looking at it as almost a weakness because we weren't having enough net new come in, so that we were at risk of like client concentration or like one client leaves. We had, even with this year being great, we had one client reduce their budget by 90%. And they were like an ongoing retainer client. And so this year it's been a lot of net new for us, where in years past it's been mostly like maybe like redesign cycles for existing clients were all matching up nicely when we needed them. So the net new has worked out well this year, and we have put a lot of effort in the last 2 years into our content marketing, into our newsletter, into other types of just like outreach and promotion for us. In terms of the deal size, that's been interesting because I felt like we went through a period there the past couple years where our deals were all much smaller. Like, I'd look at the pipeline and be like, how is this going to work? This year it's gone back up. And if I even look at the deals that we lost this year, those were the largest ones. And, even with a good year, I'm like, if only we had gotten those. And so, because I've had people tell me, yeah, these big deals just aren't around anymore, and I don't think that's the case. They are there in the right verticals, so we are seeing those. And our pipeline, we do EOS, and so in our scorecard we have net new, existing, and then RFP. And our net new and existing is roughly equal. Net new is maybe increasing a little bit here at the end of the year, but through most of the year, it's been pretty equal for us.
Great. So talk about the RFP. There's a question that just came through about, they've started to feel like they've had to go through the RFP process more lately. Is that what you're feeling as well? And anyone can answer this.
I would say we still do RFPs, but it's much smaller than the other. So I would say equal on new and existing, but RFPs is like for a purely cold RFP, almost never, right? It's like if we have some type of connection there, or like we really think we're a great fit for it, we would do that. And so, but that's one of those things when times are hard, right? Then I'm back looking at cold RFPs again, right? And, anything to see that. But yeah, we've had the same experience as this comment where
okay, that's what I was going to ask. Follow up. Yeah,
you put all that effort in, and it's like, oh, we're overwhelmed and we're not even going to answer your question or something. So, in the past, our position was, oh, we don't do RFPs, and we changed that. We absolutely do RFPs, but we try to make sure we are positioned well for the RFP if we're going to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and then the scope feels like it can change a little bit too. So Matt, do you want to comment on the RFP?
Yeah, exactly. We were very strict rules. We don't respond to RFPs, et cetera, but now we respond to RFPs. I think the one thing that we also do is see if there's just a way of using the RFP process to establish some kind of a connection or some kind of a rapport. So even like, yeah, getting denied an RFP or a proposal is fine, but then asking for that follow-up and getting the like 15 minutes with the person, you just start to build that relationship, even if the work goes elsewhere. Now I have somebody that can email in like 3 months and say, how's that project going, et cetera. So it's using the RFP process for more than just the like actual chance of getting that RFP. We get them, it's great, and we love it, and it's hard, but it's like, what else can we get from this response? Are there other business, does it help us think through new methods that we maybe hadn't thought about before? Can that become a thought leadership thing? So yes to RFPs, but what else can we do with just kind of that response?
Yeah, we got our first RFP this year that we were awarded. It was a lot of work going into it, but when we thought about it, it was in a vertical we were trying to grow. We were well equipped for it. It was a big size company, and we're like, okay, let's go after it. And we ended up getting it. But yeah, oftentimes you do see what comes into the work is a little bit different than what's listed in the RFP. So it's definitely a long process. So all right, so we have 5 minutes left here, so I want to get one more question in, and hopefully we can answer this quickly. But this might be our next topic if we do another one of these in 6 months. So we can't go an hour without talking about AI. So while other people are answering this question, if all the other people could put their email addresses in the chat, so people can reach out to you with any specific questions. I know there's one about federal dollars in here, so maybe that could be an email. But yeah, why don't you guys each just kind of comment on this? Will have to be a quick one, but how has AI changed what you're doing, whether it comes to how your customers are treating you or it's changed your operations? So I'll start with you on this one, Josh.
Sure. We do find uses for it. We like for meeting notes and summarizing documents, like it's great for that. I still find like our best content is written by hand and maybe occasionally edited by AI, but it just, when someone writes something with AI, it just has that smell still that I find. It's just like, and so I don't like that. I know our developers, it's been useful for like debugging and for troubleshooting, but maybe not so much for just like pouring out code. And we even have clients that have said you can't use AI at all.
Yeah.
And then we've had to say,
yeah.
well, there's probably something that we can use, and usually that can get carved out. But yeah, it's been interesting to see that. And so for us, I think it's mostly fallen short of expectations in that there's all this marketing hype around AI is changing everything. And I almost feel like all that marketing hype is just coming a little too soon. It's like, can it get there? Totally. But it's like, are we wasting all the marketing hype now and people are going to be burnt out on it? And so I know there's so many public conversations that are like, this is the future. Yeah. And so many private conversations I have that are like, yeah, we're really not even that much more efficient than we were before. But we have found uses for it, and we'll continue to do so. But yeah, it's been interesting for sure.
Great. All right. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I would probably second that. Those kind of conversations. I expected that it was going to be better and better this year because I've been working with it for about 2.5 years, trying to create processes and how do I work with it. And it seemed like maybe we hit like a stopping point earlier in the year where it wasn't like advancing like it was before. So the biggest thing is who's actually using it. My strategist and I we argue. I'm like, I'm the most ethical person using it, and she's like, I'm the most ethical person using it. But yeah, I think it's human first really is what it has to be still. I've been using it a lot for our case studies. It's been very, very helpful. But the efficiency there is that I'm not dealing with a writer and I would drive them crazy. I would be their worst client. So it's probably been efficient there. But to Josh's point, it's going line by line and word by word a lot of times, so it doesn't have that smell. And I still think sometimes at the end of it, some of my people would be like, "I don't think you'd really write it that way."
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Final comment from you.
Yeah, we just use it about just production and efficiency. So we do a lot of like demos. So being able to train an AI to sort of represent our voice, and then we write the script, and we don't have to re-record for any kind of a mistake is a great application of it. So like little tactical things like that is where we're using it. We don't use it for anything that's deep, thoughtful, or requires any kind of quality. There's still that like human that needs to sort of bring it across the line. That's kind of like just the general way that we're thinking about it and that we're using. It has made things efficient in some applications. You just you have to be super strategic in how you're using those. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, the biggest thing is anytime I'm looking at large groups of data, that's where I try to pull AI in because it can just do it so much faster than a human can. Where if I'm throwing a bunch of data in there, that's just even if it's just to get a second opinion on it. So that's a lot of times where I see it's useful. But no, I definitely want to thank all the participants as well as everybody here that was listening. I think this was really good. I know it was our three speakers here had to be a little vulnerable and kind of talking about what they're doing well and give away some trade secrets. So I definitely appreciate them willing to be on this webinar. And like I said, we'll try to keep these going. So I appreciate everybody for listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. This was fun.